When that clogged toilet hits, you know it's a party.
Hats off to plumbers.
Ugh. My dog snores and keeps me awake all night, and he's so cute, but it's not great.
You know what's borderline cannibalism? My cat eating animal cookies.
It really is. Have such a good day. Hello, world, and welcome to Have Such a Good Day, the show that wants desperately for you to do just that.
Hello, wonderful patrons and people of the world. How are you
Hello.
doing today, this week?
Doing good. Doing good. I'll just go ahead and speak for everybody. We're fine, Heather. We're all really great.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. We are here to unpack the absurdity of everyday life for your entertainment. We hope that that's why you're here too, to listen to us yak about life.
Indeed.
Because that's kind of what the show's about.
Indeed.
We're happy to have you.
Yes, we are. My coworker over on Daily Tech News Show, Tom Merritt, mentioned, because he listens to the show. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
And he mentioned that last week, because he had subscribed to the non-Patreon feed, obviously, that we'd mentioned sometimes has ads. Mm-hmm. And he heard an ad for like a cosmetics company.
Wait, on our show?
On our show, yeah.
What?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a, this is a little inside baseball, but for everybody who's a patron, you have an ad-free feed, and some people do really want that, and they want to directly support the show, and we're super appreciative. But you don't have to pay to listen to the show. We don't want anybody to have to. And so there is a company that we work with that offers podcast hosting and also ad revenue options if somebody decides to advertise on your show. There was a little mishap with the company some months back where I was like, yes, we'd like to monetize. That would be great, just pay some bills here. And the monetization actually never went into effect. Mm-hmm. So I guess it has.
Oh, God. So that's what it is. It's like they embed it. Is it just one ad?
I mean, I don't.
Wow.
I didn't listen. I just heard this, but the point is, if there are never ads on a show that would like to make ad revenue, it's often that there's nobody listening, or the advertiser doesn't think that your show is a good fit.
Sure.
There's all sorts of kind of in the weeds reasons for this. So it's good that
I think it is good. And as long as it's just like, not too invasive. Mark Maron now has like 3 or 4 ads in every episode, and it's pretty irksome. And he does a good job like scripting them. I mean, they're not, it's his voice, but it's still, it's like, oh man, they're long too. Anyway, so hopefully
there's
don't have to do
definitely
that.
an art to it.
Yeah.
When I worked at on a few shows, when I worked at the Twit Network, we would do in-show ad reads. Mm-hmm. And, the advertisers were pretty picky, about what you're saying, but we were also very like, hey, I mean, we're not just going to be like shilling anything. Mm-hmm. It has to make sense, it has to kind of be tech focused because it was a technology network and not be a product that, any of us dislike and all of that stuff. And there really is an art to it.
Oh, there is for sure.
And there is something to that, the organic nature of being like, oh, they're doing an ad again, but it's their voice.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's not just some like pre-recorded thing and they're going to make it funny or, or get creative. But boy, it's just, I used to get my like ad read copy and be like, all right, I'm doing this.
You were good at it. I always felt like because I did produce a lot of shows that where you were talent, and I remember you kind of rewriting stuff, and you would always sell it, especially the Adagio T. You remember that on Pop Siren?
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was a fun one.
It was. Yeah, anyway. I listen. A world without ads would be fine with me, but it's
you got to keep the lights on.
It's a way that a lot of people make some cash in order to stay creative. So that's where we are.
Sarah, there was a good omen on my way in this morning.
Oh yeah?
It was a field of baby sheep.
Oh my
baby
gosh,
sheep.
So
it was
cute.
The cutest thing.
Oh.
I mean, it was almost as cute as like koalas, but I mean, it was pretty damn cute.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. It's so funny. Right now, as I'm recording this, I can hear that the truck that is bringing my Chewy.com shipment, which by the way is like 7 very large boxes. It takes me like a week to just like break down the boxes,
Unpack
and then I have to
them.
do
Yeah,
it again
totally.
next month.
Oh, chewy.
Yeah, I know. It's, animal
They're
food.
pretty
What are you gonna
great.
do?
Yeah.
Otis is starting this new dry food because the other food is like discontinued or for some reason back ordered. And that's a whole thing because you can't just, well, for some dogs maybe you can, but you can't just be like, here's new food, eat it, because he would just have diarrhea.
Yeah. No,
It's like
we
it
don't
has
want
to
that.
be a whole process, slow start, and then you kind of mix in. It's like 20,
You can't have a
25%,
clogged toilet
75. Yeah, the clogged toilet.
and a dog with diarrhea.
So, clogged toilet. I will spare y'all the details. But I had quite a week. And this is actually not even an Airbnb issue. This was just my house. My toilet got clogged. And I was like, all right. Where's my plunger? Like there's like several plungers around, but then I was like, I remember when the landlord was here last and he couldn't find a plunger. And so I let him borrow mine. And so it's in that house
no.
somewhere. And there's guests in the house. And I'm like, not going to bother the guests and be like, hey, can I go find my plunger in your home, that you paid a lot of money to stay in. So I was like, all right, got to get another plunger. I mean, that's where we are. And of course, the whole time, because I've had some pretty significant plumbing issues in my unit back a few months. I'm thinking in my head like, okay, when do I call Brandon? Brandon's the plumber that I've used for lots of different jobs because if the plunger doesn't work, like I can't last another day in here. You know what I mean? I have one toilet to my name. If it's not working, life can't go on. Like I would literally have to like stay with my mother. And so, so I'm thinking like, God, please work. So I go down to the hardware store and boy, they must think I'm so weird. I mean, I go in there for just the weirdest things. Like the other day I was like, do you guys have a basketball? They're like, yeah, we do. Yeah, let me, the girl's like, yeah, it's like way up. I need a ladder to like get it. But yes, we have one,
Are you going to play basketball?
No, it's for Otis.
Oh, okay.
I used to buy him soccer balls, but like the fabric on the like little octagons of the soccer ball, he ends up eating them.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is, no, I'm not going to buy you soccer balls that you're just like going to disintegrate. I was like, a basketball though.
I would like to see him play with a basketball.
Oh, I
Please
have some
post a
video. I'll send it to you.
Okay, great.
It's because it's too big for him to bite it, but there's nothing really, because, it's the side of the basketball itself is, it's kind of that
Like vinyl or something.
Yeah, well, it's like a rubber tread, right?
Yeah.
But he just runs around with it, and pushes it. The only thing is that it hurts to kick it because it's not a soccer ball, So when I kick it with my foot, I'm like, ow, every time. And there's only so far I can throw it because I'm a small person. Yeah, you should have seen us at the.
What about a volleyball? Oh, that would be kind of similar to a soccer ball.
Yeah,
It's like softer.
he would end up eating it. He doesn't.
Yeah.
It's like because he wants to bite it. I don't
Bowling
know.
ball.
It's a whole thing. So anyway, I'm at the hardware store, need a plunger, got my basketball, and the and it's weird. Like this is a pretty small hardware store, and it's one of those places where it's like narrow and everything's just like piled on top of each other, but they have one of everything. Kind of a fascinating store where I'm like, I would just go insane working here, but kudos to the people who do. And there's like never the same person there twice. Like, how many people work here? You can't have that many employees in a relatively small hardware store, but okay. Anyway, the woman who was there, she was just like in a good mood or whatever. And she was like, oh, we have lots of plungers. We have like several different kinds. And I'm like, different kinds of plungers. Okay, show me. And so there was like the plunger that looks like a plunger, just standard. And then there's like this one that was sort of accordion shaped. And she was like, this is the best plunger. Like, this is the plunger that you want, unless you want to save money and then get the other one. And I'm like, no, I want the good plunger. Like, I don't care how much it is. It could be $1 million. I'm buying this plunger. And it's kind of like, it's hard to describe. It has sort of a triangle shape, because you're going to be putting it in a pot. But yeah, it has this kind of accordion thing going on. So I buy the plunger. It's like purple. It's like almost like a good looking plunger. Everything works. Things are fine at the Lane residence, and we'll leave it at that. But it was tough going.
I would like to see you have a week where nothing goes wrong.
Nothing goes
Is that
wrong.
possible, you think?
Well,
You let us know if you have a week where nothing goes wrong.
yeah, just chill week, just a chill
Yeah,
week. Maybe
chill.
it'll be next week.
Nothing breaks.
Yeah, but yeah, we've got an issue. The people at the house are not an issue. I'm not going to bitch about anybody this week. Everybody, they're all good. They're fine. They keep to themselves. They're fine. But we've got this pool cover. The pool is very large, and people who are staying here want to use the pool, of course. And I always tell them, hey, to keep the pool as clean as possible and also retain heat, just, throw the cover on when you're not using it. You don't have to. You can leave it open. Sometimes aesthetically, people are like, no, we want to see the pool. We don't want to look at this big old pool cover. And I get that, but I'm like, it'll just be nicer for you if you close it when you're not using it. And they've been doing that a lot. And the pool cover is kind of on its last legs. It's apparently quite old, and it's kind of this thick canvas. It's not like a hard top. So, I mean, I wouldn't be able to walk across it, but like you can kind of, if basketball falls onto the pool cover, it's like nothing's going to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty sturdy, but it's starting to crack in a few places. Every time our pool technician comes, he goes, you guys are going to have to fix this. It's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse, And I'm like, I know. And just thinking, guess who gets to deal with that? It's me. So this guy came out yesterday to look at the pool cover, and he was like, yeah, this just needs to be, we're not even going to patch it. It's too old. You just need to replace the pool cover. The people who sold your landlords the house did not want to deal with it. And so, they didn't replace the pool cover, and it's like 12 years old or something. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, sure. Just let me know, what it costs, and I'll have someone pay for it. But then it's like, well, but then there's installation. And pool covers are kind of weird because, well, they're different. But this particular one, as it opens, it wraps up, in the corner under stones. So you don't see it like wrapped up. It just sort of, when the pool's open, it's just invisible. It's not there.
Yeah.
Which is nice looking. But there's a whole thing going on under like these stones on the side of the pool that you don't see. Well, if you have to replace a pool cover, all those stones need to come up.
God, note to self: never have a pool.
Never have a pool. No, it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And your hair turns green.
Who would have thought?
Why would you ever do this to yourself? All the stones have to come up, and the pool guy's like, no, we're not going to jackhammer this. Like this is not,
Oh, man.
this because we're pool installer, pool cover installers. We're not, masonry workers. And I'm like, yeah, I know the people I need to call for that. So it's
Masonry.
it's a mess. It's an absolute mess.
God.
And this whole thing is going to be like, when it happens, and it needs to happen soon, right? Because eventually the pool cover is going to break, and then I'm really in a world of hurt.
Yeah.
But it has to happen, I don't know, next week.
And it sucks that you can't even enjoy the pool. It's like you would think.
I've never been in the
if
pool.
You just,
I've lived here for a year and a half. I've never been in the pool. I went into the
you
hot
just
tub
look at
once.
it with a hairy eyeball.
I just don't want to swim alone. I know that sounds weird, but like
I'm not really a swimmer either.
I'm not a swimmer. I mean,
I like a pool party like the next guy.
totally. Yeah. I don't dislike pools. I just feel like as a form of exercise, because what am I going to do? Like splash and play by myself? Like, no, like you'd kind of be like swimming laps, right? Like why else would you get in the pool? And I'm not that great of a swimmer. I just feel like, if I want to exert some energy, I would just go on a jog.
Although a nice like lounge, like a little puffy lounge thing where you can kind of lay there and have a drink on a nice warm day and get a suntan. That sounds kind of soothing.
I know. There are things to enjoy, pool life, but But today was not one of those days. Actually, this all happened yesterday. But yeah, I had a moment yesterday where I'm like, okay, so someone needs to jackhammer a bunch of stones that actually were just like sealed by these other people recently, so it like looks nice, because there's like it's basically like grout,
Sounds like a big job
outside. Yeah, and so now we have to pull all that up. Cool. Cool, cool,
Oh
cool, cool,
man.
cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
but I'm trying to. It was kind of like how you were talking on a couple episodes ago, where things were sort of melting down at your house, and you just were
Yeah.
like, "I'm gonna have to be zen about this," and just not
Yeah,
be
me
like
too.
super pissed off because all you're doing is just having a worse day because of it. And that's kind of how I feel these days about stuff, where I'm like, I mean, listen, if the toilet would have been more of an issue and my plunger hadn't worked, I probably would have cried. But it
Yeah.
did, and I was like, okay, I'm on it. I'm gonna fix
Yeah.
this.
And my wise grandmother always had a bumper sticker on her car that said shit happens up until she was like 95 years
That's
old.
really funny.
So, I mean, it's just like, it's
I've
so
always been
true.
like, who has that bumper sticker? It turns out it's your grandma.
My grandmother. If you would have met her, you probably wouldn't think she'd have that bumper sticker. But yeah, she was a wild one. But yeah, God, it's an interesting morning over here. There's the roller skater is out in full effect. I've got a new neighbor. So I'm in an office building in the adjacent town recording. And eventually, probably in a month, I will be recording from home, which will be really, really nice because it's quite quiet on the property. You'll probably hear some birds chirping or something, but
Well, and then you don't have to kind of commute, right? Everything
it's
is
great.
just kind of on site. That'll be nice.
it's going to be wonderful. And I'll have to show you guys where I'm going to record. It's an art studio that my stepmom built. It's so adorable, and I'm very excited. It's going to be my little studio. But funny how things just coincidentally happen. I have a new neighbor over here at this office. So my old neighbor is a massage therapist, so you can imagine it's actually quite quiet, when I record. But I have a new neighbor, and apparently they're musicians. And I'm like, great. So like this morning, they just moved in like yesterday, and I'm hearing him. There are two guys strumming a banjo. So if you guys hear that in the background, I mean, what are the chances of me
I don't hear
having a new
anything,
neighbor that's
but
a musician?
But yeah, no, it's true. That's the funny thing about I used to live with these guys who would like practice they had a band. I mean, they were very popular band, but they played at like little crappy venues in the outer sunset of San Francisco, but they would practice in the garage. And
Yeah.
you got to practice. If you're a music, you got to practice somewhere. And it's like, I loved the idea of it, and I hated to hear it.
Yeah.
Just over and hours, and it's like, musicians love that. It's
Yeah.
like fun, and you're like, the banjo playing, but it's like, oh, but if when you're the neighbor.
And I love it too. I'm like really kind of pumped. There's a couple musicians that moved in next door, but I'm also like, I record in here. Like that could be a problem,
Well, it sounds like it won't be a problem too much longer.
Yeah, probably not. But dude, Sarah,
Banjos.
dude,
Yes.
I had another dream about Denzel Washington. Like, what is happening?
Oh my gosh.
Can I just explain here? Like, I don't even have a thing for him. I don't think about him.
Right.
I haven't even watched a movie with him recently. Like, why is he in my subconscious? And this time, instead of him being my stepfather, I was his love interest I was literally on a set of a movie. And I remember thinking, I was very confused. Like, I'm not an actor. Like, why was I chosen for this? But it was like really steamy. Like, I remember making out with him, and
Oh.
it was a whole thing. Like, I was into him. And I thought, like, what is going on here? Why am I dreaming? Like, you know how you can look up dream symbolism and you're like, I'm having a dream about whales. What does it mean?
Sure.
And it's like, you have to use the bathroom or whatever it is.
Right,
It's like,
right.
what do I even look up? Like, is this guy like a father figure? Like, manly man?
It's like, why? Why is he
Like,
back?
why? Yeah. Like, if only I could ask Carl Jung, because I'm so fascinated. I mean, I understand one dream with him in it, but another one? Like, what?
Well, I mean, I think maybe. Okay, so I'm certainly not a dream expert, but I think about dreams a lot because I just have the weirdest ones too.
Me too.
Maybe the fact that you dreamt of him the first time was so kind of like on your mind, because you're like,
it was so odd.
why was he my
Yeah.
stepdad?
True,
And
yeah.
like you thought about it enough that like he's kind of just in your subconscious now, and now like Denzel is just
That's
going to be
true.
like part of your life.
And I think that's a good point. And I think also, like, maybe it's like, he's my dad was such a like kind of a life anchor kind of thing, and like maybe, I mean, Denzel kind of embodies this kind of like strong, manly man. I don't know. Like I might be
Maybe.
going too far with this, but other than that crazy dream,
Right.
my week was very productive, Sarah. I really think I'm harnessing this business and it's feeling really good.
good.
And there's been such nice weather, and the ocean has been so calm, which is my favorite because I can't explain it. It's like when it's calm, because usually it can be like really rough waves and stuff like that, but it just has this like vibe that makes you feel like you're in a tropical place because it's so calm. There's no wind. It's warm, and you're like, where am I? It's a trip. Anyway, I planted a bunch of new things because it's spring, and you gotta be on top of the calendar and what you're supposed to plant at a certain time. So I've been doing that. But man, okay, so I figured it was probably due time that I talk about some of my Airbnb stuff. My friend Lisa and I were having a chat about the last show. She was laughing pretty hard about our show idea about Airbnb follies with disguised voices. And we kind of went down a rabbit hole with it. But I need to start writing down some of my experiences because I have a lot. I probably have about the same amount of experiences as you, Sarah. And my place is so booked. In fact, my friend Alice just posted top Airbnbs, I think it was just the US. She posted something about one of my Airbnbs. So I'm kind of bracing myself for like the site to go down. But we're so booked. And usually a lot of times people come in just for one night. So it's like a little crazy in the summer because I literally have to turn it over 31 times in the month because there's like people staying one night, which I will change down the road. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. And so for me, when someone doesn't book via Airbnb or Vrbo, it's a lot more work for me because they get my email and they email me, and then we have to get on the phone or we text or whatever. Most of the time, those types of people who do not want to book via a website like that because they're like afraid of like their information being sold. I mean, I've had a lot of people who absolutely do not want to use those websites.
Well, and there's a markup too, right? Because
There's a markup,
there's a
exactly.
convenience for everybody for using them, but the guest ends up paying more.
Exactly. And then I get less. So it's like, really, it does benefit me if they, if
it's a
sort of dread these
direct
phone calls.
listing,
It's
yeah.
like, exactly. So, but it's so interesting. Like lately, like I've been getting this slew of like the craziest names I've ever seen in my life that I'm like, this is spam. Like this is not even a real person. It's totally globalization though. I mean, I really think that, the fact that this tiny little town has been discovered by all kinds of people from around the world. It's fascinating. But this super sweet woman who really needed her hand held, like I've never held someone's hand more.
Oh, when you said handheld, I was like, handheld camera, handheld smartphone.
No, I actually held her hand.
Handheld, her actual hand.
Handheld, yeah.
Got it.
Such a production brain. I mean, honestly, such a sweet woman. She wanted to come up with her family, but she had a lot of questions. She was very timid and kind of sounded nervous on the phone. And so I had to really walk her through things. I had to, she had a lot of questions like, do you have a washer and dryer? And do you have a hair dryer and a microwave and like cooking oil and, stuff where it's amenities that are posted and listed in detail, like on Airbnb, and so
Right,
this
right.
is sort of my issue is I really want to accommodate everybody, but like talking on the phone and getting phone calls at 8 p.m., like at night on my cell, like when I'm kind of chilling out, drinking a glass of wine and it's like business and it's them wondering where the laundry shed is and like stuff like that. It's just, it just does bother me. And I'm like, I was like, well, maybe I can somehow reroute them to Airbnb and VRBO from the website. But then there is a percentage, I would say maybe, let's say 10% of the people that book our places go via our website or knew my dad and then just continue to kind of email us, the family,
Right.
to like book their trip. And so I kind of can't do that. But I wanted to ask you, Sarah, because I know you have maybe even more of a pet peeve with like talking on the phone when it's like a surprise, when like someone kind of calls you out of the blue and you aren't expecting it.
Yeah.
There's something about that these days. And maybe it's because we're a newer generation that, is tech savvy, and phone calls have just kind of become a little more irritating.
Well, yeah, it's true. There are, if you called me, I'd be like, hi, great to hear your voice. If my mom
like
calls me,
me.
I'm going to answer. I have a couple friends where when they call, I'm like, oh, this will be, a nice chat.
I'm so going to call you
Yeah,
like
totally.
1 a.m.
Yeah, middle of the night. but yeah, most of the time I'm just not a big phone person, and I find it very invasive, and there's just like so many other ways to communicate. And that said, a couple years ago, when my life was very different, I would just be like, I'm not answering that. Like, I don't care who it is. Now, because of so much back and forth, like, for example, the pool cover people, you got to call them. Like, there's no way to get a hold of them. You got to call them.
Exactly.
And then there's, the folks that are doing this and that, or the maintenance folks. Well, I can text them for the most part, but I still have to get on the phone with them every so often, where I'm just like, this is too hard to explain. I need to get on the phone with you. And because of just a lot of that going on, and again, it's totally house related. It's just, it's maintenance and management and all that stuff. I do have to get on the phone. And I also have this like issue with the DMV where I keep updating my address and they just keep sending my registration to my old address. It's like not taking, and so I talked to somebody at the DMV the other day, and, there are just certain times where you're like, I need a human.
Yeah.
And,
of course.
And I do. And I understand that other people do as well. So that woman who's like, I really want to ask you about the hairdryer, and it would be more comfortable for me if I call.
Exactly.
You're kind of like, well, that's annoying. But like at the same time, I kind of get it.
Yeah, of course. And it's funny because I needed to give her a refund, but instead of, you can easily refund people on these websites on Airbnb and Vrbo. But I had to like put a check in an envelope for her, like on the kitchen table in the cabin that she rented, because that's how she paid. But you're going to love this, Sarah. This is on another level. Yesterday, I'm like busy working. In fact, I think I was, writing scripts for the show, and I was just like deep in thought. And there was like a super loud knock on my door. And if you understood the layout of our property, it's like we have a long driveway. So if it's like a little startling if someone's knocking on your door. And it's this big guy with a mask on. He's the pest guy. He actually got rid of some ants in one of our cottages a week ago. And he kept sending the bill to like the wrong address. So he had to come physically over to my house to ask what my address was so he could send me an invoice. I was like, oh my God, I'm living in the country. Seriously.
Yeah. There was a funny thing. I don't even remember if I talked about it last week. There was a funny thing where we've got this generator. Also a nightmare. Just the worst thing ever. But when working properly, important tool to have.
Very.
But our generator hasn't been working for quite some time. And the generator folks, it's like my landlord was kind of dealing with it, but I kept like bugging him, like, what's the status? And finally I'm like, I'm just taking this over. It's like, it doesn't make any sense that you're dealing with this when I live here and you don't,
Yeah, totally.
And so I finally, again, get on the phone with them, and it's a whole thing. And like I left a voicemail where I'm like, is anyone even going to check like their voicemail box? Like, why aren't people working? I called like at a normal time of day. Somebody did call me back, and she was like, yeah, I mean, there's like 4 unpaid bills. Like, we can't service your house until you figure this out. Man. And I'm like, oh God. And it's not like my landlord is like trying to skip out on anything. I'm like, the bills just probably came here, and I don't open their mail. I just put it like in a corner and they look at it if they want to. It's like, that's not my, if somebody wanted me to open their mail, I would, but otherwise I'm not in the business of opening mail that's addressed to somebody else. I'm like, oh my God, that's what's happening. Of course.
Totally.
It was ironed out eventually, but it was a whole mess. It was a whole mess.
Yep. Life is a mess, Sarah.
It really is. Boy, a beautiful mess at that.
It is. Definitely.
Well, speaking of beautiful messes, that's kind of a weird segue, but so the rapper DMX, you're familiar with DMX, right, Heather? Okay. So DMX, as of recording right now, and I think this is probably going to change pretty soon, he's on life support, in a coma, had a drug overdose, has had a history of substance abuse, and, I don't have to go into it any more than that because I don't know the guy. But, it's one of those things where when something like this happens, people go, oh no, I can't believe, what a tragedy. And then, you kind of get, popular songs being played, and maybe there's, some other recording artist will be like, I've got a great story about DMX, or, or whoever. And it kind of turns into this frenzy for a little while, because because when someone is about to die, which it seems like this is what's happening here, then, it's like, oh, we have such a talent, so many great memories,
exactly.
and, has all these kids, and the kids are great, and all that stuff. And I was just kind of thinking, like, okay, so DMX was never my favorite artist, but I know him, I mean, Rough Riders, I was definitely a fan, and I definitely, I've got my favorite songs. And I was driving to the dog park yesterday, and I don't know, whatever was on NPR I was just like not into it. And I'm like, Sarah, you have CarPlay, like take matters into your own hands and put like some music on, like your own music. You don't always have to listen to like, a public forum about whatever they're talking about. And, cause I'm just lazy in the car. And so I was like, yeah, let's like put some DMX on, and I'm listening to it, and I'm just like having the best time. And the dog park is like this beautiful drive, like through like vineyards, and it's just like, it's a pretty drive. And it was a nice time of day. And I'm just like I like turned it up. I mean, Otis was in the car, so I was like, I didn't want to blow out his ears either. But I'm like, I turned it up like just a little too high. That feeling where you're just like digging the music, and you're like, I want it to
There's
sort
like some
of hurt
bass coming out of your car.
Yeah, I want it to like slightly hurt. That's how much fun I'm having.
Yeah, I love it.
And it was just like such this nice feeling, where I'm like, it's very tragic that this would happen, to anybody who's so young. But also, and I also, I hesitate to be like, and someone so talented, because it's tragic for anybody. Like there's so many people who are like, well, that happened to my brother, and like nobody made a big deal about that kind of thing. Like, it does bother me to like celebrate someone's life because they were a celebrity more than just life in general.
Yeah.
But that said, there's only one DMX. And I kind of had that, I was like, it was sort of like almost like a moving experience that I had, where I'm like, this is like, to me, it's like party music, right? But at the same time, it's like, but I'm playing it for such a like specific and very sad reason. And it's also kind of like, late 90s, early 2000s, where my life was very different too. And I got into my feelings a little bit. I did. I mean, I'm fine.
Did you start crying?
No, God, no. No, I was like, stop, drop, shut him down, up and up, shop. Just yelling in my car like a weirdo with my dog. But yeah. And then we went to the dog park, and it's this like new dog park I'm going to. Everyone there is really weird. But I love weird people, so I'm like, I'm kind of enthusiastically like going when I know that one guy with the 4 huskies will be there, because I kind of know he's always there. It's like 5 p.m. ish type thing. Like, let's go there.
A lot of dogs.
Yeah, and he brings the dogs meatballs.
Oh,
and there's like, it's really hard to explain. It's too hard to explain. But there's the dog park, it's like fenced off, and then there's like another kind of picnic area that's on the other side of the fence that's like not for dogs. But and the dog parks are like kind of gross, right? There's like gross tennis balls and poop and whatever. It's like for dogs. But the other area is like really nice if you wanted to like have a picnic under the redwoods someday. And he was like, he's got all these dogs. His dogs are kind of old, so they move slowly. And he's like, as he was leaving yesterday, because I was still there, he's like, I've got the meatballs over on the other side for you. And I'm like, meatballs for me? What? And he's like, well, not for you, for Otis. I'm like, you made my dog meatballs? And he goes, no, I do this all the time. And I'm like, well, and I'm thinking to myself, like, are they poisonous meatballs? Like, because you're kind of a weirdo. Yeah. Like you seem to be an eccentric person. And that's cool. But I'm like, I don't know about that. But then all the other people were like, yay, it's meatball day. And their dogs were over there eating the meatballs. So I was like, and Otis is kind of like, what?
Meatball day.
What's happening? And so I was like, all right, let's go get a meatball. And it was like in like almost like a baking tin. And you had to like scoop the meatball out with your hands. Ew. It wasn't a meatball that would be eaten by a human. I don't really know what was going on. It was meat of some kind.
Was it saucy?
It was like, it's hard to explain. It honestly looked like almost like a dessert of some kind. you know, and I was like, do I just like put my hand in here? And one other guy's like, yeah, just put your hand in there. And I'm like, okay, this is really weird, you know? And then, you know, I give it to Otis and he likes it. And that's the end of the story. But it was just like, I don't know. It was a weird day. and I owe it all to DMX.
Well, gosh, I don't even know where to begin here. I do want to talk about weirdos, though. I totally relate to that because I had a weird kind of interaction with an eccentric guy, and I know him a little bit. I mean, I met him, you know, when I first got into town, and he knew my dad, and he's been a tenant for a very long time, and he's actually an acupuncturist, and I've done one session with him and he's actually quite good. But he's definitely kind of a little conspiracy theory guy, a little bit. He's pretty spiritual, and you know, we have like interesting conversations just out front. We'll talk for a half hour.
Like is he talking like chemtrails type stuff?
I don't know. I mean, he's more like, he's pretty, like, I guess his dad was like a Feng Shui expert, and he's really deep into like Taoist, like, you know, the Chinese medicine stuff, but like really like on another level. Like I didn't even really know what he was talking about. Some of it is just really esoteric, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we all know a little bit about Feng Shui. I'm not an expert at all by any means, but I know some of the standard rules. You know, there's some standard stuff that you want to think about when you move into a new place, and you know, you want to have your bed in a certain position, you know, so that the energy flows through the house in like the proper
mirror
way.
Placement important, you know, 'cause
Exactly.
it's like it's you know, bouncing back in the wrong place is frowned upon.
Yeah, like you don't want to have a bathroom door like right in line with the front door, because then like all the energy just kind of goes out. And I mean, there's a lot of like little tricks that are really easy and kind of you even feel it. Like sometimes I'm like, ooh, this isn't good feng shui. You know, like I don't think that this is like creating a space that supports energy and health and transformation and whatnot. I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's a Chinese thing. It's all about like spatial arrangement and orientation to like help the flow of energy. And it, you know, involves like a bunch of elements, you know, like metal, water, wood, fire, earth, blah, 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 blah. I won't get into all the details, but I understand basic feng shui. You don't want to live near a casino or a government building or a butcher shop or a graveyard. I mean, this
You
is
don't
all
want to live near a
pretty
butcher shop?
self-explanatory.
I've never heard
guess
that.
Not. I guess not.
Okay, all right.
And they say that it's good to live near like a winding road or river that isn't too loud. Like you don't want a really loud like river with like rapids, because it invites good energy apparently. I mean, there's a bunch of rules.
Yeah, it goes deep if you want to go deep.
It goes really, really deep. You want to have your bed in a commanding position. There's like a lot of stuff that I definitely, you know, keep in mind when I'm setting up a room. Anyway, this guy.
There's no feng shui that I really pay all that much attention to, except the bed thing.
Yeah.
So at some point, someone had said to me, or I had read it in an article or something, that you don't want to have your feet pointed towards the door. So it's like how when you move into a new place, and I move like every 5 seconds. I've lived in so many different bedrooms.
Me too.
I am always like, okay, where's the bed going here? I mean, TV is a whole other thing, but like bed facing when you're in bed and your feet are facing the door, it's like sometimes it can't be helped. It's just like the only way that you can orient yourself. But if all possible, I have it in my head and I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. If I can help it, I don't want it that way.
It feels funky.
Yeah.
Like, I mostly go by my instincts. Like I'm not like, I don't have a book on feng shui or anything. I just know like there are times when I'm like, yeah, this is facing the wrong direction. Like this feels weird.
Yeah.
But like, okay, this guy took it to another level. I really need to hear your thoughts, Sarah, and patrons and
everyone,
listeners out there. Everybody, the world, please. Okay, I'm moving in about a month. He's familiar with the location. It is a very specific location, and if you're in this area, you do know it. And it's this little town that's like basically on the bluff of the ocean, and there's different areas and they have different names, you know. There's one that's like the part of the town that I live in, there's like a kind of a hilly enclave. I don't live up there. I live on the ocean, on the cliff. So when you mention my street name, people go, oh, yeah, you're right on the ocean. Totally familiar with that.
Yeah.
So he knows where I am and where I'm moving and whatnot. And he was like, oh, well, you should really be careful when you move in there. And I'm like, what? He's like, well, when you live facing an ocean and you don't have a mountain behind you to bolster the energy, you can tend to fall ill or feel less grounded. So, just beware of that. And I was like, huh? I thought living on the ocean was probably the most best feng shui scenario out there.
Right.
I
certainly like
fresh air, positive ions. What else
Right.
do I need, man? I mean, I'm going to get ill. I also thought it was like a little too soon to mention something like that because I was thinking about my dad and everything. And anyway,
well, yeah,
so
I mean, it's
I
basically
looked this
like
up.
it's like he's insulting the house you're about to live in, and you're like,
Totally,
oh,
he
well,
was.
thanks. I mean, you can kind of like, yeah, there's maybe a little like decorum going on
Yeah.
that
Oh,
he's not,
totally.
he's not firing on all the cylinders.
And there's a bit of an airy fairy thing up here, which I kind of think is fun, like in small doses. But, people are very into nature and they're, probably more spiritual than maybe a lot of people in the city. I don't know. I mean, who knows? I can't even generalize about it. But this guy, I mean, on another level. So I looked this up, and I didn't spend too much time reading about it, but it does say that, a hill or a mountain behind a home helps protect from cold winds. It helps you stay grounded, that kind of thing. And it kind of bolsters the energy of the ocean. I'm like, okay, that sounds feng shui like. But I'm like, I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like, should I be worried moving into this house, like right on the ocean? Like, he kind of threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he goes, I'm going to give you some blah, blah, blah tiles to hang on your ceiling and it'll help the whole situation. I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know. I mean, it's easy for me sometimes, depends on what kind of mood I'm in. You use the term airy fairy, which I've never heard before, but like sometimes because that's kind of how it is around here as well. Not everybody is so like hippy dippy, right? I use that term all the time. And I mean it lovingly. Not everybody's like that, but a lot of people are. And you have to embrace it or you're not going to like living around here.
Yeah.
And I sort of like, that's kind of my roots. That's really how I grew up. But I don't consider myself really that person at all. I just think I'm tolerant and cool with it.
I think you and I are similar. We had like a similar upbringing in a similar town with that kind of vibe.
Yeah. And I don't, no one's better or worse than anybody. But I definitely would, if someone was like, ooh, is Sarah like super granola of a person? I'd be like, I'm definitely not.
Yeah.
But I totally get it. And what you're talking about with this gentleman, I mean, it sounds like one of these things where I would just be standing there like, not wanting to roll my eyes because I don't want to be rude, but just being like, get me out of this conversation.
Oh, that's exactly how
because it's like he believes all of this stuff, and I don't even know that he's wrong. I mean, what do I know? Lots of mysteries in life, but just like you can't build a mountain behind your house. Like, what are you going to do about it? Just like worry. It's like, it's sort of a pointless thing to like explain to somebody because you're moving there.
And the other thing is the Trinity Alps are not that far east, which is basically behind my house. Like, okay, so are you talking about like you have to have like a mountain
that's crazy
within a certain
That's not how,
amount of
think
yards
of all
behind
the,
your
like,
house?
Oceanside living that happens where that's not the case. I mean, sure, in California, we're often used to like cliffs, there's mountains here and often the ocean is kind of at the end of a cliff, but like a house isn't built down on the sand.
No.
It's like, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So if any of you out there understand feng shui better than we do, or have any thoughts or feelings about this, please email us at hi@havesuchagoodday.com.
Indeed do. We mentioned patrons earlier in the show, and just to remind you, if you'd like to support us directly, and many of you do, and thank you to all of our patrons. But if you're new to the show, or considering kind of being part of our community, please do find us at patreon.com/havesuchagoodday. You'll find out a little bit more about different pledge levels. $5 and up per month gets you into the Discord, and we're having so much fun in Discord these days.
Man, it is like banging. I mean, we got a really good crew in there.
We got a good crew.
And by the way, just so you guys know, it isn't that self-explanatory. When you want to join Discord, just send us a note on Patreon and we will send you a code. You have to have a super secret code to get in. So just ping us
and we will
we'll hook you up.
Absolutely. it's great. In fact, I'm getting a Discord notification right now.
And we have a couple new Discorders.
Yeah, we do have a couple new Discorders.
We got David Ackers.
I think it might be Akers.
We welcomed him, I think maybe Akers. God, I mean, you should be reading these because I'm terrible at this.
That's all right.
And Holger's one of our new patrons, and he joined Discord, I think, yesterday. So
Yay.
We have such a great crew, and thank you so much for being part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Holger, I hope I'm saying your name right. Listen, I don't. I get this wrong all the time too, Heather. Don't worry about it. Got a note from Holger saying, on the subject of accidentally losing contact with someone for multiple years. This was a conversation we were having on last week's show. Holger says, I've had some of that with my cousins. We haven't talked for many years. Not just because I'm in a different time zone. I'm in the North Bay. They're back in Germany. This has also been the case many years before. Back then, I visited them almost on a regular basis to stay in contact. Everything was normal. Now it's silent season again. So I'm in a similar boat of not staying in contact with some family and friends. There's just sometimes no real reason why you lose contact.
Have such a good day, TM. I like that.
Oh, trademarked? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cute. I agree.
Yeah, sometimes there really isn't a reason. And I mean, we spend a lot of time kind of like analyzing things, till, the cows come home. And maybe there just isn't a reason for it. And I like that.
Yeah, indeed. Well, Heather?
Sarah, I actually wanted to mention.
I didn't mean to sound so tired just then. I was like,
you do. You drink some more coffee over there.
It's green tea over here today. I haven't had coffee all week. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Surprising.
I know.
God, I live for it.
I ran out and I just was like, it wasn't the right day for a grocery run. Not that I have to go that far, but I was like, I kind of like to do it all at once. And then I was just like, I'll just get it later. I don't need it that bad.
I kind of live for, if all else fails, I'm like coffee, wine in the evening, and a good night's sleep. Those things are worth living for, people.
It's true. It's, some of my greatest pleasures are being like, oh, morning coffee. Oh, nice glass of wine. Bedtime. It's, the world is just smaller and smaller by the day.
It's all about the simple pleasures, Sarah.
It is. Yeah, simple pleasures. Maybe you're rocking out to DMX in your car. Maybe you're not.
Yeah, it's actually really funny because I don't have CarPlay, or I might, and I just don't know how to hook it up. But I have a bunch of just like apps that are in my car, where it's like Spotify, Pandora, Sirius, like all the kind of usual suspects. And I've always been a Spotify person, but I don't have an account anymore, and I haven't had one for like a year. And of course I get this new car and it has every single app in there except for Apple Music. And I have like 6 months for free. And I'm like, well, you have every single other app in there, but not Apple Music. Like, what gives?
Life is pain.
It is.
God, it's just a series of disappointments. I can hear, speaking of disappointment, on every other Friday, I work in my garage, so I'm on my property right now. Every other Friday, the landscaping crew comes. They're on a schedule. They come every other Friday. It's fine, which is part of the reason that, you are listening to this on demand whenever you want to be listening to it, dear patron or other listener. But we record often fairly early in the mornings, just to accommodate our schedules, but specifically because I'm trying to avoid the landscaping folks, because once they turn the leaf blowers on, it's curtains. But just now I forgot that they were here, and it sounded like someone was like dragging a body just right outside the garage, where I'm like, what are the guests doing? What are they doing? What are they dragging? And now I just remembered, it's some landscapers. They have like containers of things, and they're cleaning up stuff and doing God's work. But yeah, it's I had forgotten that was this Friday. So yeah.
Sweet. You got to update that calendar of yours.
Yeah, it's on my calendar.
And there comes the fan in my office, so it's good timing.
All right, we're going to get on out of here then.
We're going to wrap this baby up.
Yeah, episode 95 in the can. Thanks, everybody, for listening. It was really fun.
Super fun.
And we'll do it all again next week.
That's right.
Until then, meantime, I will remain Sarah.
And I will be Heather forever.
Have such a good day.